music to begin worship, isn't it? Amen. Praise the Lord. Is it, I'm not sure it's okay to say this in church, but I'm going to try, and Miss Frankie will let me know if it's not okay. But my wife says, no. But I'm just moved to say, good golly, Miss Molly. All right. Now I know for sure I shouldn't have. That's not the first time I've said something I should not have said. I doubt that it will be the last time. Welcome to the Lord's house on this beautiful, bright Sunday morning, the last Sunday in the month of January 2018. Next time we get together on a Sunday, it'll be February. And we want to begin with our morning announcements. There's a lot going on in the life of the church. You see some groceries and paper goods over here. These are just some of the items that have been donated that we will be giving to Morgan's Mercy Mansion. And there's some things that have already been taken over, and these things will be taken over as well. Next Sunday is the final Sunday that we will be accepting these items here in the church. And it's a wonderful thing to be a blessing to these young ladies who are recovering from an addiction, and we support their recovery. And it's a wonderful ministry for the church to be involved in. Amen? Amen. Also, we are collecting some other items for our Lord's Acre sale. And Jenna Nelson she's sometimes hides. There she is, right there.
She's hiding in plain sight.
All right. Jenna is in charge of our Lord's Acre sale and gathering, which is coming up on February 24th. Is that the last Saturday?
It's a Saturday, yeah, the last Saturday.
Right. And the time that that event will be is?
I think we said 5:30, I believe.
At 5:30. And there are several items that are set up for the silent auction in the Family Life Center. There are about 10 of them, and some more have come in. I thought I would share some of these with you so you would see some of the products. This, Miss Peggy, is called a serving dish. Is that what that is? Or a chip dish? Or
I don't know. I have no idea. It's not mine.
Okay, well,
Beautiful.
I thought you worked in the kitchen sometime. But anyway.
I do. It's a serving tray.
Thank you. All right, anyway, this item will be featured. It's not listed on a bid sheet yet, but this is one of the items that's coming up. And Richard, for those of you guys who don't care anything about a serving dish, there's some heavy-duty trimmer line here if you've got a trimmer. And
got a roll.
Wow.
You got a roll of that? All right. Well, for those of you who could use some heavy-duty trimmer line, let's see, the specs on this is 0.155 inches. You know what that means, Richard?
Yes, I do.
All right, very good. You might need another one. All right.
I hope not.
All right, so those are items, and there's something else. Oh, yeah, there's this item. There may be a few clothing items. This is a Wrangler vest that will be available at the auction. I'm trying to think who could come up and model. No, I won't have you do that. But, this is one of the items, and you know how this works. You have been at the silent auction before, most of you, and we invite you to bring items. I know that there's some items that you have at home that you could contribute, and these items will, the proceeds, once they are purchased, will be used for, did we say scholarships?
For the scholarship fund. We're in pretty good shape for our 2 seniors that are graduating this year, but in a couple of years we have 3. We've never had 3 before, so we've got to get an early start.
Very good. So we need some big money, and we look forward to raising that. I think we raised at least a couple of $1,000s last year, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah. And
Can I see?
yes, ma'am.
Who are there, our 3?
The 3 that are coming up. Sarah, tell us who the 3 who are coming up the following year.
That would be Jacob, Dope, and Tanner, Tatch, and Nick Monk.
and Nick Monk. All right, so those are the three that are on the list. And this church has established a wonderful tradition of giving these pretty high dollar scholarships for a church. And we want to continue that. That's a wonderful ministry. Amen? Amen. All right.
Pastor, did you consider modeling that vest yourself?
I consider my wife has commented on it, and it wouldn't be pretty. All right. Some of us are just a little bit wide in the middle, so the vest just don't look right. You know. And for some, it just looks perfect. All right, let's move on here with our announcements. We received word that another couple of events are coming up in February. Of course, we have our Ash Wednesday worship service coming up on February 14th at 6 o'clock to be held here in the sanctuary. So we look forward to that worship service. And then we have on February 18th the worship service, singing service and praying service at Whispering Pines. That will be the third Sunday of February, and we are asked to go as a church and sing and pray with the residents of Whispering Pines. And we really don't have a lead person for that event yet. If you have been waiting for your chance to lead us in gathering at Whispering Pines, this is your opportunity. And we do have Pat Hollingsworth, who has agreed to play for us. She'll be playing piano. And if you'd like to be the leader and perhaps offer a meditation at the Whispering Pines care facility, that slot is open now. All right? All right, very good. What other announcements do we need to make today? Yes, Warren.
All the guys are probably feeling a lot better today than they were last Sunday after that work party. So to get you back in the mood, another work party. Mark, I'm sorry. Sir? Don't be hiding from us. One of our members has I'll call it a tree or a bush that is dead and needs to be removed from her yard. It's a bush that is probably 20 foot high, 30, 40 foot diameter, multiple trunk stems, the largest about like that. I'm thinking 2 guys with chainsaws, a couple guys with lopping shears, and maybe a couple of guys as gophers as things are cut, put them in the back of a truck or get rid of them. Unlike our last work party that was a strenuous 6-hour encounter, I'm thinking an hour, maybe 2 at the most. But if we could rendezvous again on Saturday morning, 9:30, and I think we'll be done well before noon. If Melba's back by midweek, we'll send out an email to everyone. If not, we'll think of another plan to try to get some people. We can't have too many. I mentioned 6. If we have 12, that's even better. You know? I always would reference jobs by number of man hours. That how long would it take to build a house, X number of man hours. If you have enough men, you can get it done in 12 minutes. Mathematically. So anyway, appreciate the support. Appreciate you being there.
We'll have some women support us, so I will come and help.
All right.
So you said men, you gotta say both.
All right.
Were you here when I made that crude comment? We need cooks.
Oh my God.
Joe?
Oh, we're gonna need any pry bars, like a Barbie size pry bar.
Well,
I can supply the tiny dry bars.
I mentioned lopping shears. I can hardly wait to Good point.
What I tell people is that there's an awful lot of sadness in the world, and if I can bring a little joy, I'm glad to do it.
Amen.
Well, we look for, what time would you like?
9:30 here at the church. The work site is just a couple miles away.
All right, 9:30 here at the church this coming Saturday. That's February 3rd, I believe.
Yes.
And we get a chance to do some good. And thank you, Miranda, for volunteering to show up and
Show them all up.
show them all up. All up. That's right. Now, I'm not the only one who says things he should not have said. All right. Other announcements? All right, well, let's move on in our service of worship to the welcome. And we do have some folks to welcome today. I always like to congratulate you when you bring somebody to church, because that helps us to serve God and celebrate our faith with that new person. Joseph, you got anybody you'd like to introduce to the church?
Yeah, I've got Emily right here from Commerce.
Emily from Commerce, and I mean, you're just passing through Commerce. And,
It's my girlfriend. I met her in observational astronomy class. So.
and met Emily in observational astronomy
So you
class.
weren't looking at the stars?
Wasn't looking at the
But he was story-eyed.
Emily, let me stop this before we go too far, but we're just so happy that you've come to worship with us today, and we are glad for you and for Joseph. And you have a sort of adopted brother to your right.
Yeah, but he's not new.
All right. Well, Robert, we're glad to have you back here today. This is sort of an adopted son of the Doak family who's been with us in worship before. And Robert, we're just happy to have you back. Praise the Lord. I don't see anybody else new. All right. Well, let's continue with our service of worship with our opening hymn, and then we will have our prayer time.
Savior like a shepherd lead us, 381, all verses. We come now to our time of prayer, and I received a phone call this morning from Father Bill White, who usually sits right over there. He said that he was not feeling well this morning, and he had somebody coming over, and that he would call if he needed any further assistance. But let's offer up prayers for healing for Father Bill. God bless him. He is driven to church on days when he was dizzy, and sometimes we're concerned, but we ask God's blessing for him. Also, we received word from Melba Miller that her brother Billy, Benny, for whom we have been praying for several months, died on Friday. And Melba and Ken are down in Spicewood, west of Austin, today, seeking to make the arrangements for his funeral. And I have not received a word from them yet, but expect to before the day is over. And we will somehow get the word out to people. I know we can't expect a number of people to travel down there, but you can be in prayer for Melba and the family as they mourn the loss of her brother Benny. We have good news. We always need to remember to thank God when good things are going on. Miss Frankie had a heart valve put in. It's been how many years? 4 years ago. And she went on Monday to have it checked out. It's an experimental valve. And they said that she seemed to be doing better than she was the day that they put it in. And that's good news. We thank God for that. Praise God. What other prayer concerns with Joyce? Pardon me? Galia has gone down to be with family.
Wayne and Mommy, she's gonna visit with both of them.
To visit with both of them as they deal with illness. And we ask traveling mercies for Galia and for healing for her family. In addition to her brother Wayne being ill, her brother
Monty has the tumor in his brain.
Monty has the tumor in his brain, and that's weighed heavily on Galia and on the family to have that much illness at one time. So we do ask God's help and God's blessing.
George had surgery last week.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. We were with George down at Christus Trinity Mother Francis in Tyler for his knee replacement surgery. The initial word that I got was that things had gone very well, and he was about to go through that process of therapy to help him, aid him in his recovery. Any more recent word about how he's doing?
Jenna talked to him.
I saw him Friday noon,
You saw him Friday.
and he was doing great. Just has a wonderful attitude.
Wonderful. Is he back home now?
Yes, he came home Thursday evening.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for checking on him. Yes, sir.
I lost my aunt, she was 92 years old, she's my last aunt up in Aunt Wanda in Wisconsin.
When you come to the point of having that final relative that you've looked up to over the years, that makes a difference, doesn't it?
Go to the top of the list.
Well, God bless you, David, as you mourn the loss of your Aunt Wanda, and may the good memories, spur you to be a servant of God, to carry on the blessings that she offered in your life. We continue to lift up Kelly, your friend, who's dealing with cancer.
And Savannah.
Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. Savannah Courier, who is Kim's daughter, has had her surgery, and things are going well from what
She's home.
She is back home, had a tumor removed, and is doing well. We continue to pray for her healing and blessings for that family. A lot of prayers to offer up, and some that have not even been mentioned aloud. Yes.
I'm just going to, I have been diagnosed with psoriasis, which is an autoimmune thing that I never wanted to have. Yeah, I'm going to have it the rest of my life. I may have to give myself shots. We're not sure on that yet, but that's just something I didn't want to happen.
Well, God bless you as you deal with that news, that unwelcome health news. And God give you the grace to know how to deal with that.
I mean, there's certainly worse things, but
Well, it's not something you would have wished on yourself, is it? All right, that's right. When these things happen, no illness is a small illness when it's ours, right? Speaking of illnesses, in addition to praying for Angela dealing with this diagnosis of psoriasis, we've been reading in the news that this flu season is really severe, and it is not over. And what they're saying is that people in those baby boomer years who have good immune systems are being hit particularly hard. For some reason, this particular flu seems to be striking people around my age particularly hard. A number of children have died with it, so we lift up prayers for those folks. And while we're thinking about prayers for folks, we thank God that Cassie got through it all right. And
She scored 16 points yesterday in her basketball game.
Scored 16 points.
That's a rebound.
Let me, Cassie, just to show you what a wonderful blessing that is, Cassie, I played basketball 3 years in junior high school. I had an average of 1 point per season. You do the math, all right? So thank God for that. Thank God for that.
And my grandson placed first place in history UIL yesterday.
Wonderful. Praise God. Now, which grandson is this?
This is my daughter Shelly's oldest.
Shelley's
It's
oldest.
Brandon.
All right.
And I'm expecting him to go to Austin.
For the finals in UIL competition or
State.
state competition. Wonderful.
I'm just proud.
Well, praise God.
Should be.
While you have a health concern, you got something to thank God for, right?
Many
Amen.
things.
Amen.
And I'm
Yes.
thanking God that my mama's sitting beside me after being pale and just not having any energy for life, and she's starting to cause trouble again.
All right. You get into as much as you can, Carolyn. We're glad to see you back. Praise God. It's good to be able to laugh and have a good time in the Lord's house. Amen? Amen. Any other prayer concerns before we come together in our common time of prayer? Let's prepare to pray. Lord, we give you thanks that we're able to come into your house and have conversation with each other and have laughs and to tease one another and to celebrate the lives that you have given us. This is a sign that you intend good things for your people. You intend to bless us and to guide us through this life and give us times of joy. And Lord, for those times when all is not joy, we come to you asking your help. Some of these circumstances have been named already. There are those within this congregation and in our community and in this great world who are struggling. And Lord, we lift those up who have been named, and for those who have not been named or mentioned at all, we know that they are your children and you love them and you want to bless their lives just as you want to bless ours. So all of these we offer up to you and we ask for your blessing. And Lord, we would not neglect to give thanks for all the great things that you have done and that we expect you to do in the future. So in the name of Jesus the Christ, we continue to pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
May I have ushers?
Thank you for these donations.
Trust and obey on 467, first, second, and last.
We're gonna have a contest this morning to see who's the strongest. Now, let's see, will you help me? Okay, have you ever played the game or heard of the game rock, paper, scissors? A lot? Okay. Let's explain the rules. Like, what is this? This symbolizes rock. What is this? Okay, what is this? Okay, can we play? Okay, let's do it this way. We'll go 1, 2, 3, and then do our whatever we're gonna do, okay? 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's a tie. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so in that one example, I'm the strongest. I was going to do this with Jacob, but the way Jacob plays is if you win, then you slap the other person, and we all know how that would end up. So, let me ask you this. Just because I won this one little game, does that mean that I would be stronger than you in everything in our lives? No. Do you know anybody at school who is a bully and tries to like be stronger than other people? Jacob, Allie, do you guys know any bullies at school?
I think she calls them bossy is what Kathy
Oh, Mr. Doak?
I know one at home.
I think it's great that they have to think about it.
In order to really get the feel for this, I asked Melba to put the scripture into our worship bulletin today, and it's in a translation that we call the Voice Bible translation. And what we'll do is that I would like to read the scripture for you in the traditional version. It is the New Revised Standard Version. And then I would like for us to act out that scripture using the guide that you have found in your worship bulletin. Now, in order to act this out, I'm going to need some volunteers to play some parts. I'll volunteer to be the narrator, and that's the person who starts off reading. We need a man with an unclean spirit. And Miranda, in keeping with your word, men are not the only ones who have unclean spirits. So this could be a woman with an unclean spirit, but we need somebody to raise your hand and volunteer to read that part. Jacob will be the guy with the unclean spirit, all right? And Angela was raising her hand. Would you be Jesus, Angela?
Yes.
Very good. And we will need for all of the people to read the part of the people. You see that, the second part from the bottom where it says people? All right, very good. First, I will read the scripture in the New Revised Standard Version, and then we will come to this Voice Bible translation. Let's listen together for the Word of God. This is from Mark, the first chapter, verses 21 through 28. They went to Capernaum, and when the Sabbath came, he entered the synagogue and taught. They were astounded at his teaching, for he taught them as one having authority, and not as the scribes. Just then there was in their synagogue a man with an unclean spirit, and he cried out, "What have you to do with us, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I know who you are, the Holy One of God." But Jesus rebuked him, saying, "Be silent, and come out of him." And the unclean spirit, convulsing him and crying with a loud voice, came out of him. They were all amazed, and they kept on asking one another, "What is this? A new teaching with authority. He commands even the unclean spirits, and they obey him." At once his fame began to spread throughout the surrounding region of Galilee. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God.
All right, and now we're going to enact this passage. Why don't you sit down for this version. All right, again, I will be the narrator. Jacob is the man with the unclean spirit. Angela is Jesus. And all of us, or all of you, will read the part of the people, and I'll be the narrator. They came at last to the village of Capernaum on the Sea of Galilee, and on the Sabbath day, Jesus went straight into a synagogue, sat down, and began to teach. The people looked at each other, amazed, because this strange teacher acted as one authorized by God. And what he taught affected them in ways their own scribes' teaching could not. Just then a man in the gathering who was overcome by an unclean spirit shouted,
"What are you doing here, Jesus of Nazareth? Have you come to destroy us? I can see who you are. You're the Holy One of God."
Be quiet.
and come out of him now.
The man's body began to shake and shudder, and then howling, the spirit flew out of the man. The people couldn't stop talking about what they had seen.
This is Jesus. This is the new teaching, and he has such authority. Even the unclean spirits obey his commands.
It wasn't long before news of Jesus spread over the countryside of Galilee. Now I invite you to pause and let us join in prayer together in order that the word that I have prepared to preach will be truly the word from God. Let's pray. Amen. The second translation that we read makes this a little bit clearer than the first. But I want you to notice that it seems this man who came in with the unclean spirit didn't just walk in from out of the blue. It seems like the guy was in the synagogue. He was in the sanctuary. And he was mixed in with the people. It wasn't that he was all that much different than anybody else. So, I want to suggest to you that that could have been me crying out with an unclean spirit, and God forbid, it could have been one of you. Now, I want you to just accept that scenario for just a moment. There was in the synagogue, there was in the sanctuary, a person with an unclean spirit. Now, how do you get to be in the church and have an unclean spirit? I mean, didn't we take a shower, wash up before we came? I mean, didn't that kind of stuff get washed out of us and we are cleansed and we are here to faithfully serve the Lord? I want to suggest to you that we could indeed bring into this sanctuary and into any place where you and I are an unclean spirit, because let's translate that a slightly different way. You can say unclean spirit, and that would be faithful to the Bible story, but Marcella, it could also be translated a man or a woman came with an attitude on Sunday morning, or a word that rhymes with attitude. Arlene, maybe somebody said this person is in a mood today, and they've come into the sanctuary. Is this becoming a little bit more real? Can you begin to relate to this? There's a story that I love. I think I've shared it with you before, but I use it as a reminder of how an unclean spirit can come upon me or any one of us. It's that story, perhaps you remember it, of a Christian father who was sitting down for a meal with his family. His wife had prepared a delicious meal, and the family was there. His young daughter was seated at the table, and they were getting ready to enjoy. And the father prayed a wonderful prayer, Jim, one of those good prayers like you might pray sometime, thanking God for the food that was on the table. And he made a point to thank God for the hands of his wife that had prepared all this wonderful food. And then they started to eat. And this father who prayed such a wonderful prayer, Warren, began to comment on the meal. He said, you know, this tea is kind of weak. Couldn't you have brewed the bags a little bit longer or put an extra tea bag in there? What happened? Did you put too much ice in and did it melt in the tea? This tea is weak. And he went on and he began to cut into the meat that had been placed on the table, Richard. And because he cut into it, he said, you know, this meat is kind of tough. Couldn't you have tenderized this and made it a little bit better? What about some gravy or something? Because this could be better. And he went on and he commented the wife had placed on the table some light bread on a little saucer, and that was the bread they were eating. He said, you know what, I don't care too much for light bread. Why didn't you make some cornbread? About this time, the daughter, who'd been observing all that was going on around the table, commented and said, "Daddy, that was a wonderful prayer you prayed over the meal. And I noticed all the things you said about the food that Mom's hands have prepared." She said, "Daddy, tell me, which one of those things did you really mean? Do you thank God for her hands, or are you really upset about the meal?" Now that story reminds me of how I can get an attitude at the dinner table. And if you're not careful, I could get an attitude, Peggy, on Sunday morning.
Amen.
And I can say and do things that I really ought not do, Ronnie. And I want to suggest to you that I'm not the only one. If we take it seriously, this story of the man with the unclean spirit who was in the sanctuary, in the synagogue on that day, couldn't that not have been any one of us? So there's a reminder for us that when we appear in the presence of one another, and if we appear in the presence of God, it's good for us to be open to the Lord crying out and said, that mood you have, you need to get beyond that. That attitude which you have, you need to get beyond that kind of thinking and that kind of acting. The uncleanness that is within you needs to be cleansed by the power of God's Spirit. That stuff needs to come out of you. Now, I want to offer another example of how it can happen, because it may be that you can't relate to sitting down and saying those mean things about the meal that has been prepared for you. But one of our members was at the Praise and Gospel gathering last Saturday evening, Jodan, and happened to notice one of the singers, Randy Brown, who sang a song that evening. And she came up to me and said, "Preacher, I want you to take a look at that video of the Praise and Gospel service and listen to that song sung by Randy Brown." She said, "I know you like to listen to lyrics, and I want you to hear what he said." And I went to YouTube, and I called up the video that you had placed there, Jodan, and I was indeed struck by some of the lyrics of the song. Randy Brown, who you had with us last Saturday evening, a week ago Saturday, sang the song, "The Trouble with Me." And just a few of the lines from that song go like this: "The trouble with life is it goes on when everything is shattered and the ashes have been scattered and we're left all alone. So that's the trouble with me." I just want you to hear that. What he was saying is the trouble with our lives is that it's not that we get sick or things go wrong so much, but sometimes the circumstances of life are just cause everything to go haywire. And the reference to the ashes being scattered, somebody has lost a loved one, right? And someone is left behind to mourn that loved one who has lost. And what do we do then? Sometimes you and I may become depressed and overwhelmed, and we don't know what to do with ourselves. Sometimes the shattering that comes in our lives may be about our finances. Things are not working out quite the way we want them to. Or maybe the trouble is with family, and circumstances in the family are not working the way we'd like for them to. Or a friend has disappointed us. And then the question is, how do you go on? You and I can get an attitude, can't we? Sure. In those circumstances. And we can have developed some moods that may be particularly foul. We can begin to act in ways that are decidedly unholy and unclean. So what do we do then? I want to suggest that this man shows us what can be done. Something led him to the synagogue that day. When you and I admit that we have a spirit within us that is unclean, When you and I admit that we have an attitude or a mood that is wrong, that is inappropriate, it's good for us to show up in a place where Jesus can see it and confront it.
Amen.
That's what confession is about. That's what admitting that we can be wrong is about. It is about presenting ourselves. There is a song, Molly, Just As I Am, presenting ourselves just like we are and coming into the presence of the Lord and letting the Lord deal with us and inviting the Lord to say, talk to me, Lord. Tell me what you see in me. If there is something wrong in me, call it out so that I can be healed and I can become the person that you want me to be. Now that's really the message of this gospel lesson. Last Sunday we talked about those disciples that Jesus called there around the Sea of Galilee, and he said, follow me, and they followed. And that's wonderful. I hope we can be like those disciples. Jen, I hope we can say, I'm going to get out of this boat and I'm going to follow you, Lord. But it's not always that way, is it? Sometimes we don't feel like getting up from the place where we are, and we just sit there and we stew. We sit there and we get caught up in whatever business that we were doing in the first place, and we neglect an opportunity for the Lord to call out of us the evil spirit that is within us. The good news of the gospel is that Jesus is waiting. He's waiting for us to show up in the place where we present ourselves to him and become cleansed, to have that spirit called out of us. And I like to remind people, I have a view of the church. I've never really heard anybody say it this way before, so it may be something I came up with, but I think it's really accurate. I do not think of the Church of Jesus Christ as a hotel where holy people come and they check in to have a holiday every Sunday. I don't think of the church like that. I don't think that you came today to this holy hotel that we call the Church of Jesus Christ and you're on holiday because everything is right with you. No, on the other hand, I think the church is a hospital.
Amen.
Where people come who are in desperate need of healing. And the people who come in need of healing to this holy hospital, Father Carl, forgive me, they're catching hell. And hell may be at work within me and may be at work within you. But in the presence of Jesus Christ, that's all right. Because he is prepared to deal with the hell in me and the hell in you. Can you say amen to that?
Amen. Amen.
The invitation is printed in our worship bulletin. If there are any here today who are not a member of a church, we invite you to join us as we seek to be the faithful people of God.
I surrender all on 354 Franklin
In his presence may we live. May the Lord bless you and keep you and make his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Let the church say, amen. Have a wonderful Sunday.
Glad you made it today.
Yes. So y'all are through there?
All right.